Hi, everybody. I wanted to make sure that people realize that I'm not like dead or, on the verge of death. I mean, I've been having a lot of back problems. That's the reason I have been in and out. But we're back. We're fine. Everything's good. Welcome to Moohead Radio. Before we get off on the show, Derek, I wanted to say a few words, and I think this is your platform, son.
All right. So, because we're a Browns community over here, we're all Browns. Well, most of us are Browns fans here, other than Tony, I guess. But anyway, I wanted to kind of share the news. Some of you may have seen him through YouTube, but Cassius from the Sports Sanctuary YouTube channel. I became friends with him over the last probably 3-4 months. Worked with him a little bit, did a few collabs. But just in general, became friends with him. I woke up this morning and found out that he had passed away. And I just wanted to come on here and let everybody know, because I understand how it is. And I don't think people realize with the internet sometimes, if you're not a, million number drawing personality, some people may not ever know. And, I don't know what his family's going to do as far as his stuff or how they get the information out. But being the fact that I worked with him and I was his friend, I just wanted to. Oh, I said it myself, but also on here, just because we're all Browns fans. Let everybody know what happened, and he's certainly going to be missed. It was a really, really hard day. So that's all I wanted to say.
I can imagine. I mean, I had watched him because you had cued me in on, what was going on with you doing some collaboration work with him. And he really did a nice job. He, a good presenter. A lot of the times you get people who are podcasters and, it can be a little bit, here, there, and everywhere. But he was focused and did a good job. Only 38 years old, you said, and it's just, a loss, and it's a pointless loss.
And I forgot to say, I on the video I uploaded about it, I put the link to the obituary in the description, and on the obituary they had said something about if you wanted to honor him, donate to the Children's Hospital. So that is all linked there. If you want to go show your support, I would appreciate it. I know he certainly would. So, yep.
One of the things, and it's what makes sports more real for me, is if we're all basically rowing in the same direction. We may have a difference of opinion about players, about coaches, but in the end, we all want the Cleveland Browns to win. And we've had such a dry spell and had such little success that every bit of success, the people who have remained fans for decades, waiting for something good to happen after the team blew out of town, and went to Baltimore, every one of those people has value to me. It's one of the reasons why I always say anybody who's ever been a part of Moohead Radio is part of a family. If I died tomorrow, I've got 500 subscribers. Whoop-de-doo. Nobody would know who the fuck I was for my podcast. They would know. Some people who worked with me might remember who in the hell I was. They're not from this. We're all equal is what it amounts to. And everyone's opinion, no matter how, even if it's Hiram, for God's sakes, everyone's opinion counts for something. And when we lose a voice, we lose a voice, and and it's a sad thing, because those people may not get to see one of the great turnarounds.
Yeah, that was one of the biggest things. Thinking of what he's gonna lose is, I mean, how many years of just suck. And I'm glad at least he was able to see this past season. That and getting to the playoffs again, but it really. I mean, it sucks, but there's not really a whole lot you can do about it.
Yeah, well, without becoming too maudlin about this, a great family loss for him. I'm sure we all grieve over this loss. We can start with some headlines, and before we get into talking about specifically Brown stuff, the Cleveland Indians have put Shane Bieber on the injured list. He is not going to throw for 2 weeks with a right shoulder strain. It was obvious in his start yesterday that they were sitting on his breaking ball, which was flat, did not have 12-6 motion, and with him gone, the Indians have no pitching staff at all right now, except for Savali, who's having a fantastic season. But I mean, it wasn't that he was not throwing as many fastballs. He was relying on breaking balls, and they were left out over the plate. And I knew something was wrong with him because he usually just doesn't groove pitches to sub-mediocre hitters. So that's, he's gone for 2 weeks. Sheldon Richardson's gone for good. According to inside sources, he is not going to re-sign with the Cleveland Browns. He is headed back to Minnesota. That is the word, where he played before he was a Cleveland Brown. And I think you have to understand from his perspective, Sheldon Richardson gave the best that he had to help the Browns get the corner turned. And when you're told you're not wanted, in essence, and you go after somebody like Jadeveon Clowney, it's business. It's not personal, it's business. But it is personal to players. And even if he came back for not as much money with the Cleveland Browns, there would still be a part of him that said, I came here and was underappreciated. And going back to Minnesota will bring him back to some of his roots. And that's what's happening there.
I also think from a business standpoint on his end, you look at Minnesota versus Cleveland right now. I think Minnesota is in a much better position for him potentially to be there long term. If the Browns bring him back, he's going to be back, another year and out the door again. So going to Minnesota could be a long-term solution for him.
And I thought Sheldon Richardson was a good guy in the field, and no hard feelings at all about, you choose where you resign, because look, there are stories that are players trying to hold on, by the hair of their chinny chin chin. And then there are other guys who have the ability to call the shots. And a guy like Jamison Crowder, who was the leading wide receiver for the New York Jets, he has agreed to take a pay cut. And wide receivers, if you're not Julio Jones, wide receivers not fetching the big bucks right now. They're kind of stagnant on the open market. And he was due to make a non-guaranteed $10 million base pay for 2021, the final year of his 3-year, $28.5 million contract. The new deal is expected to be significantly lower. But it's to stay in the league. It's to stay alive. And you can't blame a man for wanting to continue to make a living. Around the league also, if you're a Jacksonville Jaguar fan, you really don't want to hear that for the second time now, hamstring injuries has forced Trevor Lawrence out of team drills. The first day of minicamp, he had a problem earlier, and it has resurfaced right on the first day of the team drills in minicamp. So you'd be amazed. You can have all the talent in the world, but if your body doesn't cooperate, who knows? And I really don't think that Trevor Lawrence, that he has pro football escapability the way that Lamar Jackson does, okay? I watched him in college. I just don't think he's evasive like that. And it'll be interesting to see, a lot of these guys come in from college, they have to, put on muscle mass to be able to take what they're going to get. And I think Trevor Lawrence is going to find out what it feels like to get hit by human cannonballs.
Yeah, that's my concern with Trevor Lawrence. I think his escapability, is good enough. It's almost like Burrow, where it's not like Lamar Jackson level great or Kyler Murray, but you can get out and maybe gain 5-10 yards here or there. As far as his size and stature was always concerning to me, but I think it's kind of like a Kevin Durant situation where I think you're not going to be able to change much of your body type there. So I think that's just something he's going to have to live with, or they're going to have to live with, rather, in Jacksonville.
Yeah, and but especially when you're dealing, you know, hamstrings are funny things. These things can become chronic if they're not nipped in the bud. We saw that with Lonnie Chisenhall when he played for the Indians. He had calf problems, and his calf strain never went away, and it just became a chronic condition. And it's something to be aware of. While we
Offensive line too. Keep that in mind to Jacksonville.
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of quarterbacks who've met their maker basically in Jacksonville. While we were talking about people who play into part of Cleveland fandom, Mudcat Grant passed away. Mudcat Grant, best known in Minnesota, he was a Twins pitcher, but equally known here in Northeast Ohio because he was the color commentator for Cleveland Indians baseball. Mudcat, to say that he was a colorful figure would be an understatement, and he and Harry Jones did the television broadcast for many years when I was a young man, and it's amazing. You see how old people are when they pass away, and you say, "Wow, has it really been that long?" And then I look up, and it's like, "Holy shit, I'm 64 years old." And Mud was 83 or 82.
85.
Was he 85? You made it.
I think Rick said he was
Rick
85.
said 85.
Yeah, I mean,
But it's fine now because we get to watch chicken fucker SJWs pull down their pants and shit on his grave because he wore Chief Wahoo on his fucking hat.
Who's SJW?
Social justice warrior butt fucks.
How do you tie that into Mudcat Grant's death? Are you fucking crazy? That had nothing to do with that. The man passed away at 85. And, nobody's going to hold against the fact that he pitched for the Cleveland Indians. Rick May's pointing out 7 years for the Indians, but he'll forever be remembered as a Minnesota Twin. And that's really kind of where he spent the final years of his life. But very colorful announcer. I'll do my best Mudcat. And look, so that people don't get the wrong idea of what I'm doing. There was a guy in Cleveland radio, and he worked at WGAR 1220 AM, and I'm trying to remember his name, and he did a character named Mudflap, and it was a takeoff of Mudcat Grant. And it would go something like this. You go, "Well, Mudcat, what do you think about the way the first 4 innings have gone?" "Well, Harry." And he would be caught like, "I see something going on in the right field stands out there, Harry." It was like, "Okay, Mud." That's Mud was cool, and we're gonna miss him. That's and again, there's no political inference from a man's termination and death. The Cleveland Indians, as far as what they're going to be named, uninteresting. That's what I have named them. That they're really the Cleveland irrelevance is, and I feel bad for Terry.
You
Francona.
could keep the same logos, CI.
Yeah, Incorporated, INC. It doesn't stand for incorporated. It's incompetent. They have a weak roster, man. A weak roster, and now their pitching is gone. You're going to see a massive losing streak by this team. And, they're doing so much better than they have a right to do based on what they've put on the field, The other thing I wanted to talk about on Friday and didn't get a chance has come to full fruition. I really wish I had done the show on Friday, only because my take would have been even more valid than it is now. One of the NBA series is already over, and you know that the Phoenix Suns, your guys, Brian, just tore the Denver Nuggets to pieces. And
I'm just waiting for the Jazz to do the same thing to the Clippers.
Yeah, I mean, well, the Clips at least came back and won a game here, you know. But to me, the sad part of all of this is what happened after they went down 3-0, before they were wiped out of the playoffs completely. Their coach, Mike Malone, who, we know Mike Malone is, being in Cleveland, and he badmouthed his team, and I felt we quit tonight. This is what he said. I mean, and which is something you never want to see. So I guess for game 3, I'm going to have to find guys that will at least go out there and leave it all on the line. I may have a hard time coming up with 5 guys that fill that. But these 2 games, these second halves have really been disappointing, and that's an understatement. I mean, that's the classic throw somebody under a bus bullshit. And it's like, I can't even field 5 guys off my roster who are going to try real hard for me. Well, try coaching them up a different way, you dumb fucker. And look what happened to him. The only one he didn't badmouth was Will Barton, who had been injured, who gave him like 10 hard minutes on the court in game 3. Game 4 comes along, and what I was going to say on Friday's show is like, it's a hard job. It's a very difficult job coaching NBA athletes because they have, in many instances, a lot more security than the coaches have. But if you lose your team, and we saw this happen with David Blatt in Cleveland. I mean, Cleveland would not have won a championship with Blatt as the head coach. He lost the team. And he was acting like, well, I was in Tel Aviv Maccabi, and I'm a EuroLeague guy, and I know more than you do. And the NBA players are like, fuck you do? It's like, no, you've never done anything in the NBA. And now you've got Mike Malone telling his players, well, you're just a bunch of quitters. So what did you think the players did? Well, right after the game, Jokic, who was the NBA's MVP, right after he made those comments, said, I don't think any of us quit. Right there, I knew. It's like, well, he's lost the players completely. It's one thing to say we didn't play our best, and then to get them to play harder. But to sit there and point your finger that way, you're just demeaning every member of your team's roster all at once. And you're basically emerging from the rubble yourself saying that's because they didn't try hard enough. My game plan was great. Let me tell you something. And Brian will agree with me 100%. Denver is not as good as Phoenix. No. That's just the way it goes. I mean, you look at the balance that they have, the young, fast scorers, they have the young center, they have, oh my God, incredible young offensive talent, but they got CP3 to tie that all together and to hit big shots because he's been there. They have this really nice dynamic of having veterans and really fine young players playing at an up-tempo pace. And at their very best, the Denver Nuggets, how are they going to get up and down the floor with them? I mean, they're going to, Phoenix is going to get their shot sooner or later. They may miss a few of them, but in the end, they're going to get up down the floor so quick. You see DeAndre Ayton get up and down the floor. What, JaVale McGee supposed to keep up with him? Is that what's supposed to happen? And so you get Jokic in game 4 who comes out and gets himself ejected. Takes a wild fucking haymaker for no good reason. He'd missed a shot that was an ill-advised shot to begin with, and he gave the referees an excuse to eject him from the game, which is exactly what quitting is. It's like finding a soft spot to fall and leaving your team behind to get buried. And that's the MVP of the league, and that's how he responded to Mike Malone. So the day Mike Malone gets fired, which will not be that long from now, believe me, the way it goes in the NBA, you lose your team, you lose your team. They get off to a slow start, Mike Malone's gone. I will not defend Mike Malone in a situation like this. You never come out and say something like that. And the team ended up losing anyway, and I thought they played as hard as they could and did the best they could. They're just not good enough. So I don't know. I mean, I thought that whole thing is a travesty. And on the other side of the fence, Now the Bucks have pulled even with the Nets, and the always unreliable in the playoffs, except for one 3-point shot, Kyrie Irving, and we give him all due reverence for making the big three against the Warriors. But don't forget, in the years before that, he was always hurt. And in the last year he was in Cleveland, he was a bad attitude guy and a head case when the Cavaliers tried to defend their title. People forget this about Kyrie. That come postseason time, he's a fucking pain in the ass. He goes down with an ankle sprain. He ain't going to play in Game 5. I mean, and Harden ain't ready to come back in Game 5. So now it's going to be Kevin Durant. It's going to be the tarantula who's going to have to carry that team. And they're going to have big games with guys like Harris and, all the guys are going to have to, Shamet and all of them are going to have big games in order to cover for this. But, you can't make anything happen in the NBA. The people go down with injuries. But to me, with Kyrie Irving, I'm glad he's out of Cleveland. I'm glad. And I really have a problem. And it's funny because they always use the...
Remember when the fan threw the water bottle at him?
Yeah.
I made the comment, no, that guy was just testing Kyrie's flat earth theory.
Yeah. I mean, the guy has problems. And he was a problem his last year in Cleveland, and why he wanted to be the man. He wanted LeBron to turn over the keys to him. Well, they turned over the keys to him in Boston, and what in the hell happened? He just alienated everybody. And I've come up with a new expression. There's addition by subtraction, okay? And then there's addition, subtraction, and distraction. And distraction is the worst of all because you infect a team. And this is the fear that I have about OBJ. Nobody questions his talent. Nobody questions the man's talent. But is this a case of distraction, not subtraction? They're saying, well, they did really fine without him. Well, it's not him. It's the distraction that we didn't have. So I see this with Kyrie Irving. No matter where he plays, he is a distraction. And we'll see what happens.
Speaking of distractions, hi, Key.
How you doing, Key? Blake Griffin, they're going to need a big game. And he has knocked down some threes, but he's not been a primary focus. And when he was playing with the Pistons, he was jacking up threes and wasn't making them. Blake's got old legs. And
I said Blake is more likely to tie his own shoes together, trip, and then tear up his knee.
Yeah, but one game, I've seen it happen before. They're going to need something big from him. Seriously, something big. So, all right. So
anything more than 15 points, I think, is too much of a reach.
Now, Derek, Jarvis Landry is saying that Odell Beckham is better than last year and doing things that will blow your mind away. Besides the hype and obvious friendship with the men, 6.5 months after surgery to repair his knee, he's cutting, planting, full weight. He's going to be ready for camp. What do you see?
Well, I think when Jarvis says that, I think people take it as, it's just his best friend, going the extra mile for him. But I think, what I've seen in the videos, he does look incredible when you look at the fact that he did have that major injury. Because it's like I talked about a few programs ago. It's really good to see the clips go from just a vertical run, which is great in itself that he can do that, to now he's cutting. But he's not just cutting, he's cutting aggressively, and he's doing multiple different movements. So it's not like he's just slightly testing it. He's fully testing it. So it's good.
And running to the ball.
Yeah, well.
Baker was throwing to a spot, and he's able to run to the ball.
Yeah, and as far as the season goes, I think I think he was kind of given a reality check that this team does not need him to be successful. And I think that also is going to be a big thing that helps him going into the season, because it's not all about your ability. Your mentality is a big part of it.
One of the things people are saying, and it's very common for players who are distractions to have an injury like this and come back and have a magnificent season. And then they become a pain in the ass distraction again after that, once they reassert, their authority. It happens all the time in basketball. We've seen this happen where guys, are salvaged from the scrap heap and they have a good season, and then somebody pays them big money and they just become an instant pain in the ass somewhere else. What I want to see from Odell Beckham, I want to see it from all the Browns receivers, because I think one of the things we don't do well with our passing game, the wide receivers don't come back to the quarterback. And I've noticed this, that you can't just stand around or just trot out. You've got to make a drive and a push back up the field to get closer to the quarterback so he can visualize where you are. The Browns receivers don't do that, and it becomes a problem. And I think one of the reasons why Rashard Higgins has stood out, and they say there's chemistry there, is because he actually would do that. And the other receivers would just kind of stop their patterns and just kind of trot along and stand there like they're waiting to either block downfield or that the play is over.
Well, and what that does for Baker, he's got the arm strength to zing it in there when he sees somebody come back. So if he sees Rashard Higgins come back, he knows where to put the ball. If he sees OBJ or Jarvis just kind of lollygagging around, where's he going to put the football?
Right. I mean, and so much, it was funny. I was watching a documentary about Kenny Stabler and about what great years he had with the Raiders. But once he went away and he went to, he ended up in New Orleans, and, there was just no Dave Casper. There was no Branch. There was none of his receivers that he went to, and there was no chemistry there. And him throwing the ball up in the air, expecting somebody to be there, and they weren't, led to his interception rate going right through the roof. And he also was older and he lost some of his arm strength. But the fact is that any ball that gets intercepted gets blamed on the quarterback. But that's not fair. And, I think that Baker has been told, throw it out of bounds. But there's a lot of plays that can be salvaged with a good offensive line like we have, if he does hold on to the ball longer, if the wide receivers give him help.
Well, and best impact is right. Unless the coaches find a way to involve him more in the way that fits him with Baker, it's not going to work. Because I think OBJ can work. I really do think it can work. Now, have we seen it? No. I think we've seen glimpses. We've seen some times
Jets
where
game.
It was, Jets game and the Bengals game, that second game of the year, they were pretty all right. But yeah, I think they need to really figure out how to use him in that mid to deep range. I think a lot of times they try to keep him short on a lot of slant stuff. I don't think that's where it's best at. Because if you look at all OBJ's highlight catches, as far as his best catches with Baker, it's normally to the left mid to deep field is where it is.
But you watch the statistics. I mean, if you just look from an analytics perspective, Baker Mayfield, 2.6 seconds getting rid of the football, he's one guy. It goes longer than 2.6 seconds to the pocket, and he's a different guy. And part of that is because he's not getting help. Part of it is that even if he can
they're
extend
not getting
the
separation.
and maybe he can keep a play alive for a little while, but what happens is he don't want to take a sack, so he ends up putting the ball up, and then if they're not in the same page, the wrong person is standing in the wrong spot, and
or it's a deflection and then turns into an interception.
Yeah, one of the things that I've really liked that Kevin Stefanski's done is really kept Baker Mayfield glued to the system. And and last show that I did, I was saying, gosh, I'd like to see him audibilize more. I would like to see him have the freedom, if he sees something at the line of scrimmage, to audibilize out of what is obviously an incorrect call when a defense shifts into something different. But for the most part, it's important for a guy who's only 6 foot tall and in the pocket to really sight his guy and get rid of it quickly. Because the more that pocket collapses, then you're going to see the deflections. And that gets you nowhere, and it's going to impede the quarterback's vision. Again, I think that the receivers can do a better job, and I'm not going to get on their case because there was no way to practice this shit last year. But there ain't no excuses this year. There ain't no excuses.
But I also think they need to really take a deep and hard look at each guy and figure out which role fits them best. Like, you're not going to have DPJ on speed stuff. You're going to have him on possession stuff. And I think that's what they need to do with Landry and OBJ. There's a way to get the best out of the both of them. But I feel like now, or at least in the past, it's just seemed like, hey, we're going to go off of your name brand and say, hey, go do it, instead of, hey, here's what we want you to do. I think if they do that, then they can really put something good together.
Yeah, I saw that Greg Newsome has now signed with Drew Rosenhaus. So
get ready for that second contract.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, a hardball player. Drew Rosenhaus is famous for being a hardball player. Or, well, not a player, but he is a player. In essence, he controls a lot of money. And, I think the team is excited about Greg Newsome playing. I think that they like what he brings to the field and that he has a maturity and that he's a worker. But, again, these are things to really just end up seeing, same thing with JOK. I'm going to start just doing that, rather than trying to, it's like DPJ, JOK, rather than have to say, Jeremiah Wusu Koromoa. I mean, so you understand what I'm saying.
He's pushing hard for Joker.
Yeah, this is the time of the year when everything is positive and good, and you're going to see how it all unfolds. The depth chart, it's not like JOK, if he isn't as good as we want him to be. Remember, Mack Wilson made the roster. Mack Wilson may not make the roster this year. I'm serious.
I know, I'm laughing. I don't think he will. I think it's probably 60-40 that he won't.
Right now, JOK, they're going to work him as a will linebacker, that's, weak side guy.
You know what that means?
Coverage.
You know what that means? That means now he's at competition not only with JOK, because that's what they're going to have him doing. He's also in competition with Tony Fields, who they just drafted out of West Virginia. Who do you think they're going to go with? Are they going to go with the guy who's let them down a few times now? Or are they going to go with the draft pick who could potentially turn out to be something?
Yeah, it's not that Mack Wilson doesn't have a skill level. It's just that he doesn't have a filter. And it's a problem, and he tends to overcommit, and he's late getting places because he leans the wrong way. He doesn't see the field as a whole.
He can't tackle. He's horrible.
The big problem is, in order to tackle, I'll liken it to hitting a tennis ball. I'm sitting here saying to myself, what is the problem that I'm having out on the court? Because I used to have this wicked cross-court, short-angled forehand. And it's like, now I'm hitting it, and it just sails. And it sails out of bounds, wide, every time. And it's like, that's a shot that was money, man. It was money for me. It has to do with where my feet are. Because I've got this bad back. I've got the knee replacement. I've got bone on bone in my other knee, and I'm just not getting in the same hitting position. You go ahead.
This might sound stupid, and I might get made fun of for saying this, but you know what? If I was Mack Wilson, what I would tell him is you need to at least try to switch to strong safety, because at Alabama, all of his best plays were because he had a running start. And I think if they used him in a strong safety type of role, I don't know what his size is. He might be a really big, strong safety, but if they used him in that kind of hybrid role, where instead of going in to make tackles, he could come in, flying off the edge or whatever, maybe he could be better. But I don't see him as a linebacker in the NFL. I think he's proven that he can't do it.
Yeah, I mean, it was one thing watching our former linebacker, the now Jacksonville Jaguar, Schobert, getting pushed back 3 yards after contact because he was just late in the britches, I mean, it wasn't that he wasn't in tackling position. It's that he was too upright when he tackled, and he didn't understand leverage, and people would just run through him. God forbid Derrick Henry would just run him over, just like a bus running someone over.
And that's what I like best about Jacob Phillips.
Yeah.
That right there.
Yeah, I mean, again, footwork becomes so important, and if you're not in the right position with your feet, you're going to miss the tackle, or you're going to get knocked off your feet and driven an extra 3 yards. And the yards after contact are huge in the NFL because if you have a guy nailed to rights for a 1 yard or 2 yard gain and he ends up getting 5 instead, this changes the entire strategy of the game and how the offense is run. So, no, I could see a situation where Mack Wilson's not playing and JOK.
One thing that I tweeted at him, I think it was after one of the December games, was, if you want to tackle better, why not pattern yourself after one of the best tackling linebackers in history and try to be more like Ray Lewis?
Well, I mean, you got to. I think Mack Wilson has an attitude. I just don't think that he has a skill set that puts him in the right place at the right time. And they're going to give the keys.
Well, Woods' defense might be making him think too much.
Well, then he's got to get
rather
smarter.
than just being able to react to what he's seeing. He's got to think about where he's got to be and who his assignment is and all of this other.
I kind of think that any team he plays for in the NFL, he would have the same problems. And we've seen this before with players who couldn't pick up any system. Barkevius Mingo being an obvious example. Somebody who it just didn't matter. He had all the athletic skill. He had all the numbers as far as speed, but there's something missing. And, Karamoa is going to be given the keys to at least be in pass coverage situations, a lot like Phillips was last year. And I think you're going to see him on the field in a narrower capacity until they're able to coach him up. So,
yeah, I mean, I think with JOK, the biggest thing is getting him comfortable in a certain, I guess maybe not position is the right word, but assignment maybe is the right word. You know what I mean? Like when you're playing zone versus man, you're not manned up on one guy. You're covering this area. So I think that's kind of how they're going to treat him. They're not going to just say, hey, you're locked on one guy. You're going to patrol this area. And then what that can do is then they can, from there on, bring him off the edge or drop him back or whatever. But I think it's just getting him comfortable in that role where he can kind of, do it all.
It's a lot like we've watched running backs for years in Cleveland. When we got Eric Rhett would be a good example. There's a name from the past that flashed into my mind. When running backs get older, they lose that first step. And that first step for a running back is vital. I mean, and it's interesting for a guy like Nick Chubb, it's not about going out and running a 40 for me. It's, and I'm going to bring Hammer Time in here because it's been a while. Hey, Hammer, how you doing, buddy? I don't want to see a running back who just is fast in the 40. I want to see a guy who, if he's a one-cut runner, is able to accelerate out of that and explode out of that step. And we've had so many guys over the years when we got Jamal Lewis at the end of his career, who just couldn't hit the hole. And this is the same thing for defenders. That instinctive first step, when your eyes see, your brain connects where you're supposed to go and you go. It's a lot like, and again, I was watching a bunch of stuff that was all different sports. And they were talking about Muhammad Ali knocking out Sonny Liston the second time in Lewiston, Maine. And the phantom punch, it was referred to as, because nobody saw it. And there were questions as to whether it was real or not. And they really slowed down footage. But what they showed, it was very interesting and they showed many times that Ali did this, and like when he knocked out, and I'm trying to remember the guy who he KO'd, who had never been KO'd, Oscar Bonavena, the guy from Argentina. Joe Frazier couldn't knock him out. Joe Frazier could kill anybody with his left hook, but Bonavena was like iron jawed. Yet Ali knocked him out in the 15th round. And how did he do it? And what he would do is, most fighters tuck their chins down when they punch, and when they're evading, they evade, but with their shoulder leaning forward, or well, in this case, this shoulder leaning forward, so that they can, in essence, twist and move with the punch to avoid, that collision course. So you'll see, they call it rolling with the punch. And Ali was especially good. He would leave his hands down, and he was just annoyingly out of range, and people just graze him. But he was doing that for a reason. But he would do it with his shoulders straight up. He would do it, instead of angled, he would do it like it was all wrong. All wrong. You're not supposed to do it that way. Nobody would train you that way. But it gave him that ability to keep pulling away. But while they were looking to lunge, he would throw a straight right over the top that was so fast. He did it to Bonavena and knocked him out. And he did the same thing to Sonny Liston and Lewiston. Liston was charging in, and he walked right into that short right hand, and that was it. It's all timing. And Ali couldn't do that later in his career, because synaptically we can't process and move, as far as our, instincts. Everything slows down, our reflexes. But that's what's great about football. I mean, when they talk about a quarterback processing or a linebacker processing what's in front of him, it's not just that he knows what's going to happen, that he's able to react to it and get to a spot in time, which is a split-second thing, man. That's hard. That's hard to do. So that's what Mack Wilson lacks. Probably never going to have it.
Yeah. Well, I think the only way he makes the team is if they think he's valuable on special teams, which I don't know.
You're going to have to unmute your mic, Hammer. What's up? Oh, there he is.
I'm being polite and letting the host and the other.
Hey, you're the guest, man.
So there you go. So yeah, I think you pretty much nailed it with Mack. I mean, there's a reason why he dropped to the 4th round that he did, and there was some other issues. Hey, competition's going to be good. I mean, that's one of the things, and we don't know how much people have left in the tank when they get there. So I mean, it'll be interesting to see. I mean, I think, rather than in prior years where we had issues, we now have depth everywhere. And particularly, that's part of the reason why the D-line, they hired all those guys. They signed a whole bunch of people. So, there's going to be – you're going to have to contribute all over the field. And I think you nailed that, Derek. I think that was right on.
Yeah. Best Impact's asking, why is Chubb not being extended now? Are the people in the front office looking to let him go? I don't believe so, but I think that
I think they want to see what the next cap numbers are going to be, because there's going to be a new TV deal, and everybody's going to be reset to a higher value than they were in 2019.
Well, and keep in mind this: number one, OBJ, Got to still figure out if he's going to work out. Number two, Austin Hooper. You can move on from him after this year if it doesn't work out like you think. So they might reallocate that money from Hooper or Beckham or Landry potentially, and that could be what Chubb's contract comes from. So I think
Landry's not going anywhere, man.
well, you say that,
valuable.
you say that, but it's a business. If things don't work out, if he gets injured, you never know. But I'm just saying, I think they're going to wait and try to get some of these questions answered. But I hope they don't, because I just freaking bought a Chubb jersey. I'm not going to go get it, but it's over there.
I think you nailed that, though. The cap number is going to change. That's a big reason why a lot of people didn't sign this year. Some people went ahead and signed 1-year contracts. There's a whole lot of those out there. So that cap is going to make a big difference next year.
Yeah, and it has become a very intricate economic issue, and you need some really bright folks. We've got a bunch of Ivy Leaguers who try to figure this shit out.
He's also on his 5th-year option, by the way.
Yeah.
Who?
Chubb.
No, Chubb was second round.
No. Yeah.
Oh.
The thing about it, that as far as running backs as well, though, I mean, yeah, we're thinking, hey, we want to sign Chubb long term, but running back life expectancy is,
especially guys who run the way he
way he does, right? I mean, with reckless abandon, to say the least. It's your first 3-4 years after that, it's diminishing returns with few exceptions. There's always exceptions. Big story. Did you see the stuff about? I don't know if you already touched on it. I'm sorry, I was late. Was Le'Veon Bell and
I'm sorry.
Le'Veon Bell talking about how he'll never play for Andy Reid again, and they're like, yeah, you're right, you'll never play for Andy Reid again. It's like all you were was a dick when you were there, and blamed everything on everyone else, and
that's what you call a self-fulfilling prophecy, What a schmuck. Yeah.
But you saw that as he went to the Jets, did nothing. He went to Kansas City, was a minimal contributor. Running backs are one of those kind of things that you're going to hit a wall. You hit a wall, and you hit it hard and fast.
But I think that's why with the Browns situation, I think it's important to keep Kareem Hunt. He's here for another 2 more years after this year, I think.
And I think the other thing about that is part of the idea when they're saying, "Hey, can we put both guys in the backfield?" No, man, we're gonna run Chubb at you like crazy, and then in the fourth quarter, we're gonna bring Hunt out there for a change of pace. Mm-hmm. You're gonna be like, "What the hell's going on?" Because
Bengals game, second game of the year.
It's just what a nice luxury to have. And then we saw what happened when Chubb was out. Hunt was not quite as effective as he was. Of course, we had the big Dearness Johnson game, but that's what it's there for.
And Dearness Johnson with Demetric Felton being out there,
he may not have his position.
He may not have a job. That's exactly right, because Demetric Felton's a faster running back, and he's a more versatile guy. And
special teams ace as well. I mean, he did that in college. He played special teams.
Kind of a jack of all trades.
Yeah.
Master of none. Now, Best Impact is asking, who is the tennis GOAT? And this is not,
in my opinion, Jimmy Connors.
Yeah, and I'll shoot that out of the water very easily. And believe me, I have no problem with Connors, except that he was personally a dick. But as a tennis player, he had amazing longevity, and he had 2 distinct careers, in essence. The greatest tennis player who's ever lived, Roger Federer, okay? Then there's Pete Sampras, okay? And these are people who were able to maintain the number 1 rank for the longest period of time in history. And look, Federer can't be questioned as the GOAT because he played in the age of Djokovic, and who Key's bringing his name up, who's a fine tennis player indeed. And Sampras had to play through Boris Becker and Andre Agassi and that whole lot of people, and maintained his number 1 standing. Jimmy Connors, on the other hand, was usurped by Bjorn Borg and was usurped by John McEnroe, and then made an incredible and unlikely return to win Wimbledon, to get in the finals of Wimbledon. He lost to Arthur Ashe there, and Connors became a lasting figure. But it's like women's tennis. Who is the GOAT? Serena Williams. There's no question in my mind. Serena Williams is the greatest tennis player on the women's side that ever played. Not Billie Jean King. She was most influential.
Navratilova was really fucking good.
And that's the second. And I had the opportunity to actually speak with Martina Navratilova. It was a lot of fun. It was over a speakerphone, and had the opportunity to ask her, do you think you could have beaten Serena? And she goes, yeah. But of course, what's she going to say? Martina Navratilova was so far ahead of the women in condition-wise from where other women were. She usurped, Chrissy Everett. And poor Chrissy had to spend the rest of her career trying to keep up with Navratilova. She had to improve her conditioning to such a high degree. Tracy Austin, and there were a whole series of them. Navratilova would be my number 2 historically.
But my personal favorite from that era would be Gabby Sabatini from Argentina.
Yeah, the Sabatini. That was her between the legs shot. Except the problem there is shoulder problems and a shaky serve. But
still like her, dude. Whatever.
Yeah.
See, and my favorite, not for how well she played, was Carling Bassett. That was always my
Carling Bassett. Yeah,
had nothing to do with
pin-up girl.
Nothing to do with how well she played. But she was certainly easy on their eyes. Not to mention the fact Daddy
Anna Kournikova before Anna Kournikova.
Daddy had some money and
the pouting Russian. Yeah,
owned Tampa Bay in the USFL, and he was something. But yeah, no, there's Martina was it until recently, and Serena certainly is. And if you want to go back, historically, you have. What happened back in the day before it was all pros and stuff. And you have people like Margaret Court and that crew that was even before my day. But I mean, good grief. But yeah, Martina, oh my gosh.
Margaret Court was ruined.
Rick.
Margaret Court was ruined by losing to Bobby Riggs and choking on center court against Bobby Riggs. Margaret Court was forever doomed to a secondary role in women's tennis, and it's a shame because she won a lot of tournaments. And back in those days, it was kind of a different women's game. I brought up Billie Jean King only because Billie Jean King is to tennis what Arnold Palmer was to golf. Not only a winner, but a person who is an ambassador of the sport and who brought women's tennis into a greater degree of pay equity. She did a lot to enhance the sport for women.
A lot like Arthur Ashe too.
Yeah, I liked Arthur Ashe too, and again, it was great that he had his moment. I think that's a wonderful thing, but his time on Earth was unfortunately too brief. And again, Djokovic. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that he's the next one in line, but you got to do it for such a long period of time to really become the GOAT.
He got disqualified for winging his racket and hitting it on fire.
Yeah, I mean Djokovic could be a real
great.
character, boy. But
that was a very John McEnroe thing to do.
Yeah, and he was impetuous during the course of his career. But it's hey, here's a guy from Wilkes-Barre, Scranton. Yeah, getting ready for the upcoming season. Hey, Liberty Bell, how you doing? And I was just up the road. I lived up in Binghamton, New York for a couple of years. Nice area, and Scranton, Wilkes-Barre, always had the opportunity to drive down that way. Only about 45 minutes, 50 minutes away from Binghamton. So yeah, I have great familiarity with that area, and I'm not going to mention Joe Biden's name. Okay, that's where he was born. Yeah, I wasn't going to do that to you, Brian. Not me. Hell no.
The G7 was enough for me. Thanks.
At least you know his. At least you know his name. I don't think he does. Oh, I'm gonna stop.
As far as what happens in the off season, we get into the preseason and all of that. You're going to start seeing roles playing out, like a guy like Malik Jackson. Malik Jackson is a guy who's going to be a tutor, a mentor to younger players. All right. So a guy like Jordan Elliott better listen to a guy like Malik Jackson. All right. That's what it's going to come down to. Malik Jackson is going to try to pass knowledde to people. And it's so important to have those kinds of players. It was like when Tim Duncan was toward the end, but the Spurs were still winning, and he was able to mentor younger players into the right way to play the basketball game. That's the kind of thing that a good veteran brings, and rather than malcontents, which we've had in the past. So what I'm looking for is for somebody to stand up and be that leader veteran guy. And for the defensive line, Malik Jackson could very well be that guy. I don't know if Jordan Elliott, who was drafted high enough to be able to perform, whether he is up to anything or not. We're going to find out, though. And then the question is with Anthony Schwartz, I'm hearing that he has a history of soft tissue injury on top of everything else. So I think there's going to be some eyes on him, but once the ball starts hitting the ground, once the ball starts hitting the ground, it's going to go away real quick with this player.
I'm really looking forward to seeing him in the preseason and Harrison Bryant in the preseason. Those are two guys I'm really going to be focused in on. And Peoples-Jones. I'm sorry, and Peoples-Jones.
Yeah, Peoples-Jones is a guy who I think can take a leap because he got playing time he probably didn't even expect that he was going to get. And he has an opportunity to run with something because we didn't really strengthen ourselves at wide receiver. But if he can grow into a position, he's got some speed, he's got some size, and he's got some coordination. And it's a matter of being on the field more with Baker. That's a good thing.
He's the only receiver on the team that is built different. Jarvis, Beckham, Higgins, all are pretty much the same type of player, similar size, similar weight, play the same. Peoples-Jones, well, I guess Schwartz, but Peoples-Jones is the only one who's, the bigger possession athletic guy,
Yeah, and this is something that we always, since Josh Gordon went to bye-bye, we haven't had a guy with, and of course, Josh Gordon had more than 4.4 speed. Peoples-Jones ran a 4.4 or 4.45. Josh Gordon, I think, ran a 4.3, if I'm correct. I mean, he was a load. But yeah, there are opportunities for guys to step up and step forward. And he would be the wide receiver. And you're talking about Harrison Bryant. Austin Hooper didn't contribute in the way they thought he would. There's going to be an opportunity for Harrison Bryant, but he's got to hold on to the football. They got to teach him.
And Njoku, I think. I think both of them.
Yeah, and Njoku is a guy who he doesn't really want to be there. I'm convinced that he wants a job and he wants to be paid. But if he had his druthers, he would be with another team where he would have a bigger role in what was going to be done. And it would be catching and running, not blocking. All right. But for the Browns, I mean, a guy like Austin Hooper is like an armored truck. He ain't real fast, but he knows how to run a pattern. He can catch the ball and he can block. And Harrison Bryant is a guy who came out of college who really was a wide receiver type tight end, an athlete. And they gave him an opportunity. And last year he did all right, but he didn't. Not that he didn't catch passes. It was when he was running that he was kind of loose with the ball and had a couple of fumbles that hurt the team. You got to.
And I've heard that I've heard that in the offseason he's put on some muscle, which is something I was hoping he would do.
He has to do that.
I mean, I don't know if that's true. I haven't seen him, but I'm fingers crossed that is the case.
And, that will, again, what is expected of him, he's got to be able to manhandle people and he's got to be able to block. And he doesn't have the natural size that the Chief has. He's got.
Well, and the Browns just signed a Wookiee in Connor Davis.
Yeah, I don't know anything about him. Oh, jeez.
He's
I saw
enormous.
He's the basketball guy, Brian.
I think so.
Yeah.
But he looks like a fucking power forward.
It's been done before. Antonio Gates has been done before, and we'll see. That sounds like a project to me. That sounds like kind of a long shot project, but well, it's 2 minutes after 7. We got to get out of here. But it's nice to see you again, Hammer Time. I'm glad everything is going okay in your world. And
finally wrapped up spring volleyball and have a couple 2-week reprieve. That's why when you tweeted out that your back was acting up last Friday, I'm like, oh, I finally can be on the show.
Yeah, isn't that the way it goes?
And the cow is down. So I will say one thing though, and this is Bronk can kind of listen in on this when he gets a chance. We happen to be watching the Denmark-Finland football match over there. Soccer match across the pond. BBC was actually doing the broadcasting, but it was being broadcast over ESPN. But they were showing, how they'll do that, and they'll be the camera crew. And when Eriksson went down, I don't know if you guys had seen about that. One of the players, Christian Eriksson for Denmark, actually collapsed on the field.
It was terrible.
And we were watching it live when it happened, and they're like they're filming and they're showing them doing CPR on him. It's like, can't you cut back to the studio or something? It was irresponsible, and it was like finally the Denmark players made a wall around there so that they couldn't see what was going on. But I mean, he looked like somebody hit him with a truck. They were showing him, they had his head, they were picking up his head, and he was like a deer that's on the side of the road. It was really gruesome. The fact that he's okay is amazing.
Well, he was gone. They said he was dead, that he was technically dead, but on the first jump start, they got him going again. And cardiac arrest is something that kills people instantaneously. It's not a heart attack. A cardiac arrest is altogether different. And if they don't have some kind of a jump start device to be able to shock the system back, the time it takes to get to a hospital, it's generally too late. So he's a very fortunate young man, and I hope that he's okay. I hope that everything goes well.
Moo, did I tell you I'm going to Ohio State?
No.
Yeah. Yep.
When?
This fall. Well, so I'm going to Ohio State Newark first, so it's the branch, and then Maine after 2 years. So.
Oh, great! All right.
But maybe I can become something halfway decent.
Well,
Hammer's dog approves.
Yeah. I've never seen.
I tried to mute her, but she just will not. She wants to have her say in this, Derek. She wants to congratulate you. So that's good.
God, that's funny.
Well, I mean, what is the Newark campus like?
Well, actually, it's kind of crazy because downtown Columbus, if you go on campus area, it's all got a same almost style, I guess maybe is the right way to say it, as far as how everything's built and buildings look. It's weird because when you go to Newark, it's the same way. So you feel like you're in Columbus, because I've been on Ohio State's campus so many times. I can't even count how many times. And it's so weird because you're not in Columbus, but it feels like you are,
What was your reason for going to the Newark branch?
Well, number one, cost. It's a lot cheaper to start there. It's way easier to get in, and you're guaranteed the ability to go to Maine. And then if you have so you get like a Buck ID thing, right? And say if I need a book or something, I can waddle my butt down to main campus and go to the library there and get in and, get everything. So it's, just because it's Newark, you're still an Ohio State student, and when you
You're
graduate,
like you're like a UDFA. In essence, you're getting an opportunity, and they're giving you 2 years to prove your stuff so you can get to the main campus.
yeah, and you only have to have a 2.0 to get to main campus. 2.0.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so you're pretty much getting to main.
But to get to main campus to start with is much more difficult than back in the day when I did it. Because back when I did it, it was not nearly as competitive as
it was. A gimme. It was a gimme.
It was pretty much, did you have a heartbeat and a check? You know.
Yeah, there's zero chance.
They were more interested in the check.
I'll tell you. I visited 3 schools and applied for 3 colleges. One was Duke University, which I was accepted. However, I had to wait a semester. All right. The other one was Bucknell in Pennsylvania, and I was accepted at Bucknell, and I ended up staying in state at Miami of Ohio. So, again, but back then, anybody could get into Ohio State. I mean, realistically, I mean, that was a gimme.
Yeah.
I mean,
if you would have told me when I was, I don't know, 12, I would have said you're crazy. And the cool thing is, me and my best friend are both going to be together there. So, and so yeah, so
said that too, not that long ago. No, I'm just kidding.
So, yeah, going to college, and I'm down 40 pounds since Easter.
Good for you. Good for you. Keep it up. I wish I was doing better. I think since the turn of the calendar, I've had a lot of problems. I mean, I'm like 15 pounds up from where I was, and that's not good. Not good. So
it ain't easy, I'm telling you.
No, it is not.
Crazy.
It doesn't get easier as you get older either.
Craziest thing is looking at pictures, going, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe that's me." Like, that is crazy.
Yeah, believe me, I know what it's like. Everybody, thanks a lot. I got to get out of here. It was nice.
Thanks for stopping. Goodbye, Key.
Yeah, thanks, Key, and thank you to the panelists, and thanks everybody for tuning in. You know what it all is. I mean, it's Monday, so we'll be back on Friday. I'm going to take good care of my back and make sure that I'm back on the air on Friday. Thanks for tuning in, and until next time, hasta la vista, Pastor Heads. Good night.
Ooh.
See ya.
Bye.